Welcome to WTOP's Energy Strategy Series. I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and today we're looking at innovation and the future of energy, sponsored by Washington Gas. I'm joined by our guest, Virginia Senate Majority Leader Scott Surovell, who represents the 34th District in the Commonwealth, which covers much of Fairfax County. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sure, excited to be on today.
First of all, I wanted to take kind of a 30,000-foot view and look at this as an issue very broadly. You've been involved in many of the issues that have evolved in connection with energy over the years. And I wonder if you would just kind of give us your overview of what you think the future of energy is in Virginia.
Well, it's an interesting time to be involved in this policy area because historically there really hasn't been a lot going on, but what's going on now is very transformational, and we're undergoing a big transition from a mostly carbon-based energy production system to a more renewable-based system. Virginia's actually always been about 30% nuclear, but the remaining 70% has typically been carbon. But also, in order to accommodate all these new generation sources, we basically need to rebuild our grid and redesign our grid so that we can move energy around the Commonwealth in a different way than we historically have. And that presents its own set of challenges. On top of that, Virginia's always been a kind of a thriving, growing state, but with the attractiveness that we have in our state for data centers for a couple different reasons, the amount of demand we have for power, coupled with the demand everybody else has, transitioning to electric vehicles and electrifying heat and things like that in general, the amount of demand we have for electricity is exploding. And that's putting even more pressure on us to make this transition and do it in a very sort of fair and what we're, as legislators, trying to figure out how to do it in a way that spreads the cost fairly amongst everybody.
And we'll get into some of the specific legislation, but what do you think about the pace of the way legislators and policymakers are enacting some of these changes? Would you like to see it be going faster, or what's your view on that?
It's yes and no. I think the news on the climate is actually pretty dire, and I'm worried that the country and the world is not transitioning to renewable sources fast enough. But it's also, it's like trying to turn around a battleship or an aircraft carrier. I mean, it takes time to get the new systems and the new means of production in place. And if we don't do it carefully and thoughtfully, we can end up get blackouts. We could have big problems. And the amount of money that we're talking about investing in these things is in the trillions of dollars. And those monies don't come for free. They typically come right out of ratepayers' pockets. And so we have to make sure, as we're committing to certain technologies, that we're doing it prudently, carefully, cost effectively, and to just do all that, it just really takes a lot of time to figure it all out as we go. And so, for example, in Virginia, where our legislature is very well known for being super fast and super efficient. We go down there, we meet for 60 days, we meet for 45 days in the short session, bang it all out. But what I found is that, in some of these committee hearings, we'll hear a bill for 15 or maybe 20 minutes if we're lucky, and we might be moving around $1 billion or a couple $1 billion in a vote, and it's really not a lot of time to be given to an issue like that. So we've actually set up we've reinvigorated what we call as our Commission on Utility Regulation to take a really deeper dive into these issues outside of session with 7 full-time staff to just devote a lot more time and policy resources to figuring these things out. So I think we need to move faster, but we also need more help to make us move prudently to make sure we don't go too fast. So it's kind of a complicated answer, but that's the best way I probably could answer it for it.
Well, it's a complicated issue, as you well know. Looking at some of the specifics, you most recently had legislation to create the Virginia Clean Energy Innovation Bank. This is part of this effort to be on the cutting edge of some of these issues we're talking about. Could you explain a little bit about what the goal of that is and why it was developed?
Yeah, so President Biden and Congress has made a lot of money available to help us achieve our clean energy goals in this transition through the Infrastructure Act, the IRA. And one of the pieces of the IRA makes available about $350 billion of federally backed low interest loans to fund about 12 different clean energy technologies. And I'm not just talking about like wind and solar and um, things like that. It also includes things like energy efficiency and actually some water issues, stormwater, things like that. But in order to be able to tap those federal monies, the way the feds are evaluating whether or not there's a public interest in a particular project, even a project being done by a private entity, for example, like a utility, is they're looking for the state or a local government to have some involvement in the project, some financial involvement, up to about 3% of the total cost of the project. And so what we did was, I saw that in Minnesota and a couple other states, they'd create these green energy banks. And so I wrote a law that sort of was patterned on that, so that we could take a little bit of state money, put it in the green energy bank. The green energy bank could find projects, fund 3% of the project. It could even be like a local government project. It could be a utility project, whatever, a project at a college. And the federal government will loan you money up to 97% against that 3. So we put $10 million in our budget, and that would leverage about $300 million of low interest federally backed loans, which means we don't have to use, for example, the local government, our bonding authority, because the federal government will back it. So we don't have to use local bonding authority to back it. So the idea was to leverage a very small amount of state money into a really big pile of federal money, investing in these projects at really low interest rates, which might otherwise be hard to finance. And that's what the bank is designed to do. And of course, we could throw more money into it if we wanted to, but the window to tap the federal money closes, I think, in 2026 in the fall. So we have a limited period of time to take advantage of this, or else other states are going to come get our money, the money that we ought to get. But unfortunately, the governor put a reenactment clause on the bill, which basically is a nice way of vetoing the bill. But I'm hoping I'll kill the reenactment clause and on the floor, and then in the meantime, we might be able to talk the governor into backing off and just letting the bill go. So it's not dead yet, but it's having some issues right now.
Related to that, as you know, that there seems to be pushback from some critics of the Biden administration, that they feel that some of these things are kind of top-down things coming from the federal government to the states. But on the flip side, as you point out, the state doesn't really have to put up much money to get a lot of money from the federal government.
No, it's very small. I mean, getting 97% leverage against something is 3% versus 97. I forget that leverage. It's like 1 to 25 or something like that. Leverage is pretty incredible. And I think we should take full advantage of it. I don't feel like it's top down. They've given us 12 different categories of technologies to choose from. They don't say you have to do anything. It's purely, you can do it if you want to do it. So I don't see it that way. But the IRA has really made has sort of really changed the economics on a lot of projects, especially things like geothermal, electric school buses, solar on schools. I mean, right now, some of the biggest problems with solar on schools is that they can't, because schools or governments are not taxpayers, they can't take advantage of tax credits. But under the IRA, they made these tax credits refundable, which means it's a lot easier for government entities to get the full benefit of a lot of the tax benefits that come with renewable energy that private entities have been able to benefit from for years. So, again, all this stuff is in transition, and everybody's readjusting to this new legal, fiscal, climate reality. And I don't see it as top down. I see it all as a lot of just tools to innovate and figure out ways to get things done.
Well, let's take a look, if we could, at something that other legislation that did get enacted a couple of years ago in connection with the Virginia Energy and Innovation Act, in connection with hydrogen and biogas, transitioning with natural gas. What was your thinking there with that legislation, and how do you think it's worked out so far?
Well, that was a bill that I think a lot of people don't really think about methane as being part of the climate problem. And methane is actually about 1/3 of the climate problem. Carbon dioxide is the other 2/3. But methane is 85% more effective at trapping greenhouse energy than carbon dioxide is. But once it goes up in the air, it disappears a lot faster. But it can really cause a lot of really rapid and fast warming. And we're seeing a lot of increased methane emissions, partly from leaky gas wells, but also as the permafrost melts in certain areas, methane is being released from the ground. But in terms of what my bill was focused on, it was really focused on trying to encourage our incumbent natural gas utilities to be able to reduce methane leakage. And so it did basically three things. One is it allowed them to recover from their customers the cost of using enhanced leak detection technology, things like drones or other sort of newer ways of seeing methane coming out of their pipelines or their pipes. So they can recover that cost from their customers. The second thing it did is it authorized natural gas companies to purchase certified low emission methane. There are third-party NGOs right now that will certify methane being produced as being produced in a low methane method, meaning that the wells are not excessively leaky, and that the methane as it comes through the pipe and gets to the gas company is not leaky. It costs a little bit more because of that extra steps that are taken to stop the leaks. But what it does is, utilities are typically required to do things as cheaply as possible. So this says you don't have to buy the cheapest gas. You can buy gas that's a little bit more expensive if along with that, we reduce the amount of methane leaks we get. And then the third thing it does, the bill did, was it allows incumbent natural gas companies to invest in biomethane projects so they can get biomethane or renewable methane into their pipes. And I don't think a lot of people realize, but you can actually create methane in a lot of different ways. You can put a methane capture system on a landfill, which Washington Gas is now trying to do at Prince William County. You could put a methane capture system on a sewage plant. Virginia has 1,600 sewage plants, most of which don't have a methane capture system on it. And if you drive by a sewage plant, you see a pipe sticking up with a flare coming out, they're just burning it off. You could take that, stick it in the pipe and use it to heat your house or cook your food or whatever. You can also create methane using anaerobic digesters. What that means is you take, for example, animal waste like cow manure or pig waste, or you can take, for example, food scraps, throw it in a big tub and cook it, and it generates methane. That keeps the food out of the landfill. You get it in there, and then you can put that in the pipe too. But the bill would allow gas companies to invest in those projects, provided that our utility regulator, the State Corporation Commission, finds that it's cost effective to ratepayers, and then allows them to recover that cost from ratepayers, so that instead of using fracked methane that comes out of the ground, using the fracking method, you're using biological methane and reducing methane emissions into the air, which again is 1/3 of the climate change problem. And so that's what that bill did. It's being mimicked around the country. Actually, the federal government stole the certified low emission methane idea. About 2 weeks after we passed our law, the federal government put it in federal law to incentivize the purchase of low emission methane. So it's being adopted all across the country right now. And I was really excited to be part of getting that done.
I was going to say, I would think you would be very pleased then with how that worked out.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's Roanoke Natural Gas is already putting a capture system on a system in Roanoke, and Washington Gas is putting one in a landfill up here. Down in Virginia Beach, they're doing a whole bunch of I forget what the Virginia Natural Gas, I think the company's called. They're doing a bunch of projects down there. It's generating a lot of investment in our state and reducing a lot of methane emissions within Virginia, and then it's being copied around the country. So methane is sort of like the forgotten part of the climate change problem. Everybody focuses on carbon dioxide, but methane is a big thing, and I'm hoping we can really get more into anaerobic digestion. Maryland has been way ahead of Virginia on that, and so is a lot of states in New England. But I think there's a lot of opportunities there if we can segregate some of our food waste from our biggest food waste creators, like our schools or some of these agricultural operations. They chop up a lot of chickens down the Shenandoah Valley. You could take all those chicken parts and throw them in a tub and make methane. So these are the kinds of things I think we need to be doing.
Well, you mentioned Washington Gas, and as you know, Washington Gas is the only natural gas provider in Northern Virginia. They've been carrying out a big infrastructure replacement program for many years called SAVE. How do you feel that has been working and moving forward?
Yeah, that's a program that the General Assembly authorized. I think it was in 2010, or I think it was our utility regulator approved it for them to go forward with it in 11.
Mm-hmm.
But as this infrastructure gets old, it starts to leak, and again, methane leaks, not good. It's really good at capturing carbon dioxide. And Washington Gas, I guess, has been going through their network and replacing pipes to really cut down on not only the likelihood of a pipe burst or a big leak, but just small leaks in general that you might not even be able to smell. And I know, for example, my neighborhood, they came through and did a whole bunch of pipes about 2 years ago. And, you know, it's important that we continue to renew this infrastructure. I mean, a lot of this stuff, for example, my neighborhood was put in the ground back in like the 1950s. Maybe my neighborhood might be the 40s, but the neighborhoods around me are like also the 50s. And, you know, the stuff gets old and has to be replaced. And we shouldn't have to wait for a pipe to burst to replace it. You know, we've seen what happened out in Loudoun County when you get too much gas in a house. It's not pretty, right? So
Right.
I think it's been working pretty well. They've you know, if you look at the metrics on sort of how much emissions have been reduced through their program so far, I think it's about 132,000 metric tons of greenhouse emissions, about 15 million gallons of gasoline, the equivalent of about 29,000 cars on the road, something like that. So, you know, it's, you know, all these things are important. And when you spread the cost across all the ratepayers, it's really not a big burden on rates. I mean, my natural gas bill is, I don't know, you know, $20, $30, $40 a month, you know, except in the winter when heat kicks on. But it's not big.
Yeah, and as you well know, utilities and policymakers kind of have to manage some of the expectations for the public when you have these disruptions because you're literally digging up the ground and you're doing a lot of things that have to be done, as you said, because things are so old. And do you think that the public has generally accepted that, or you're always going to have a squeaky wheel here and there in various neighborhoods or business districts?
You know, I think that a lot of utility policy is really out of sight and out of mind for most people, and people don't really fully appreciate how important utilities are until they don't have them, right? I mean, I remember back during Isabel, I didn't have water at my house for 5 days, and you don't realize how important water is till you don't have it.
Right.
Um, so, uh, and I also don't think a lot of people realize that incumbent monopoly utilities is a way that we spread cost amongst society to share expense for these kinds of things, and that we have these corporate regulators that oversee things to ensure that things are being done in a cost-effective and fair manner, given that we give these companies a monopoly. And so, you know, I get very few complaints about any of the utilities in my district, whether it's the incumbent monopolies in my area, Virginia's, Dominion and Washington Gas. Verizon used to be a regulated monopoly, but we eliminated that in 2011 because now people have a choice for cell phones, and we don't require people to connect houses to phone lines anymore. But I don't get a lot of complaints about Verizon. I don't get a lot of complaints about, for example, Cox, which is the incumbent cable provider in Fairfax County. Well, you can get Verizon Fios, but I don't get a lot of complaints about it. So I think in general, people are pretty satisfied with the level of service they get and the reliability of it. And I find the utilities to be pretty responsive whenever there's leaks or problems that they got to deal with. We're also, by the way, investing a lot. Another thing we're doing in Virginia is we're investing a lot in undergrounding utilities. The General Assembly authorized about a $3 billion undergrounding package for the entire Commonwealth and Dominion territory. And Dominion so far spent about, I think, about $1 billion, and they've undergrounded thousands of miles of utility lines in Northern Virginia, and that's definitely helped with reliability. And when they don't have to send the trucks out to fix the same line all the time, it means everybody else gets restored faster. I think people are willing to pay for that.
And then more broadly, there has been some criticism and some pushback on utilities, as you're well aware, in connection with really more of a philosophical, I guess, argument about whether some advocates say that the state and other areas are doing too much to protect fossil fuel sources, especially across the Washington area. What's your response to that?
Well, I know in Virginia, we passed the law back in 2020 called the Virginia Clean Energy Act that requires all the incumbent monopoly utilities to switch over to 100% clean power by 2050. And most of them are making big efforts to do that. Dominion right now is in the middle of constructing the largest offshore wind project in the entire country. It's about a $10 billion project. It should be online in about 2 years. I think in terms of what you just talked about, in Dominion's last, what they call their integrated resource plan, which is their plan, which is sort of their long-range planning document that they propose, their proposed plan they'd mentioned the possibility of maybe keeping some of their natural gas assets open longer because of the demand that data centers were creating. And, you know, we're having the problems we're having with this transition is that, you know, right now solar is sort of the cheapest electrical generation method on a what we call a levelized basis. But the problem is that nobody wants to have utility scale solar anywhere near their house. And we're having a lot of problems getting these rural localities to approve utility scale solar projects. And so that's creating some friction in the system. In addition, if you're going to have a system that's based largely on renewables like wind or utility scale solar, you have to balance the system out with energy storage. And we haven't quite figured out exactly what the most cost effective and most effective technology is on energy storage. Batteries sort of seems to be where most people are right now, but there's a lot of other things that seem to be better, like molten salt works pretty well. Virginia actually has a massive pump storage facility, which is basically a massive battery out in Bath County, where they basically pump a lake up and down a mountain. At night, the nuclear power plants send the water up, and then during the day, when everybody turns their air conditioner down, they open the gate, and all the water floods down and spins the turbines. And you know, in order to balance out a renewable system, you have to have big energy storage projects like that to be able to store energy for when you need it, so that you don't end up in a situation where you have to have a blackout because it's too cloudy or the wind hasn't been blowing enough. And so, you know, we're trying to figure this out. And the other thing is, by the way, is we haven't even talked about the demand side of the equation, but as electric vehicles come online, and as we try to really push people to adopt electric vehicle technology, that puts its own strain on the system. And then you top that off with the data center explosion. Like one data center is the equivalent of like 50,000 houses. And they're popping up all over Virginia like crazy. Right now, we got a big study going on trying to figure out if we need to start having more of a sort of a comprehensive plan and system for approving data centers, because all the local governments are trying to put them all over the place because of the tax revenue they generate. But in order to power them, all of us have to pay for these high voltage power lines to get the power to their place. And we end up seeing that in our electric bills. And then we end up having these fights about whether or not we need to have natural gas for like an extra like 5 years or something. And so these are issues we're all trying to work through right now. And as many things are, they're actually pretty complicated.
And related to that, do you think that there can be this kind of coexistence as we move toward decarbonization, that utilities like Washington Gas and others are able to do what they've been doing while still the energy industry evolves?
No, absolutely. But that's in part why, for example, we passed the Innovation Act I talked about a minute ago, which allows the incumbent gas utilities to invest in things like biogas projects. Like, I mean, I don't see the point in having billions of dollars of gas distribution infrastructure in the ground, just never to use it. I mean, some people would like to completely electrify everything, and I don't think that's realistic. There's some things you can't do, you can only do with gas, some manufacturing processes that you can only do with methane. But I also just don't see our society just completely abandoning, you know, gas cooking or gas heating in every single house in America. And if we need to get methane out of the air, I'd much rather get that methane out of the air and use it, you know, get it out, keep it coming out of the landfills, out of the sewage plants, keep it coming out of the pipes, you know, keep the food out of the landfills, the organic waste, make it methane and use that instead of this fracked methane. And I think that's a way to keep a lot of these, make these incumbent gas utilities, you know, transition them more to the renewable energy side of things. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to 100% biogas, but I think we can make a big part of our system biogas. And again, on the electric side, you know, we're still trying to balance this out as we move forward. You know, some people actually think nuclear is a solution. We haven't built a big nuclear plant in Virginia since like the 60s, I think, or the 50s. But we're looking at these SMRs, you know, small modular nuclear reactors as a possibility. There's lots of things being thrown around about how to get us there. And I don't think anybody has all the answers yet. And as we get there, we need to get there as fast as we can, but we need to, again, do it carefully. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I'm trying to.
No, I think so. And I think it's also interesting that, as you indicated, a lot of times people don't think about the utilities when everything is going well. But I have found it interesting in Congress, for example, and you've seen it, where we had the big discussion about whether or not the government was going to come and take away your natural gas powered appliances in the kitchen. And so there is an interesting debate going on with people as they and a lot of people, as you indicated, it's not necessarily an either or issue, but it is fascinating to me how it has kind of ballooned up into the public discourse.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people don't like change, and they don't like the government telling them how to change. But it's it'd be great if these issues weren't politicized, but somebody's always going to try and use them for political benefit. So I mean, the electric vehicle issue has been a big fight within our state. It's turned into a partisan fight, but that's another one. For example, when we're not, people say that we're trying to ban gas cars. There's gonna be gas cars on the road in Virginia till probably 2060 or 70 or something like that. We're gonna have gas cars around for a long time. But the political histrionics tend to take over in a lot of these debates. It's unfortunate, but that's what politicians do.
Right. So related to gas, I wanted to get back to specifically Washington Gas. They've been a utility provider for more than 175 years. In your view, what do they need to do as a utility moving forward in this kind of brave new world of energy?
Well, it's impressive how I don't think a lot of people realize how long gas has been around. I toured the state capital of Vermont this summer, and they had gas lamps up on the ceiling from the 1850s. And I was like, where'd they get the gas back then? They used coal gasification. They'd bring in coal in rail cars, and that's how they made gas. And I suspect Washington Gas probably used to do that too. But these industries transition, right? And I think they need to, and they are focusing on transitioning to renewables and in their own way. Like I said, I know they're investing in a gas capture project in Prince William County right now in the Prince William County landfill. I know they've been in discussions with Arlington County about using the methane that comes off the Arlington County wastewater plant and then using that methane to power their Arlington County's buses. So there's a plethora of projects, I mean, in Northern Virginia that they could do like that. The Fairfax County has a massive landfill. Loudoun County and Fairfax all have wastewater plants that need methane capture systems. And anaerobic digestion, again, I think is a huge opportunity. A lot of those kids at our schools don't eat everything on their plate. And you could take all that food and throw it in a tub and bake it and use it to heat your house and cook your food at home. So, I mean, I think those are the kinds of things they need to be focused on to help transition. I think people in the DMV would be happy to pay a little bit extra for more renewable sources of energy in their homes. I think that's a goal that everybody thinks we ought to meet, as long as it's not insanely expensive. And that's why we have utility regulators that are there to make sure that these additional costs make sense and are fiscally prudent and in the best interest of ratepayers. So DC has a utility commission, Maryland has one, in Virginia we call it our state corporation commission. But we have good systems in place to help monitor all that. And I think they're doing a diligent job of getting there, in addition to keeping their old infrastructure renewed to try to minimize those leaks as well.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you for joining us. We've been joined by Virginia State Senate Majority Leader Scott Surovell, who represents the 34th District in Fairfax County. This has been the latest segment of WTOP's Energy Strategy Series. I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and we've been discussing innovation and the future of energy, sponsored by Washington Gas and WTOP.com. I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and we've heard from the State Senate Majority Leader of Virginia, Scott Surovell. And now we're happy to be joined by Jim Steffes, Senior Vice President, Regulatory and Public Affairs with Washington Gas. Welcome. Well, we'd like to start with the same type of question that we started with Senator Surovell. And given your role with Washington Gas, can you share with us some of your perspectives about the current issues facing the energy industry and what we might be seeing ahead?
Sure. And again, thanks for the opportunity today. Look, There's no doubt the energy industry today is in a period of dynamic evolution. New energy sources, improved operating models, new business focus areas, they're helping drive a cleaner energy system with a focus on sustainability. At the same time, here at Washington Gas, we hear clearly that our customers want energy to be affordable, reliable, safe, and secure. And so we're focused on delivering both of these for our customers. We know the demand for customers needs us to have a balanced approach to move through this energy evolution. At Washington Gas, we're committed to reducing our carbon emissions through a variety of efforts, from updating and modernizing our system, our infrastructure, to introducing new solutions like renewable natural gas, to offering our customers energy efficiency so they can use less and keep their bills down. We're fortunate as a country to have an abundance of natural gas. Because of that, it is affordable and it is secure. Our Washington Gas's underground natural gas infrastructure means that customer disruptions are exceptionally rare. Our reliability is extremely high. People know that we'll be there when they need us. Finally, we have to make sure, and we do every day, and we focus on it, make sure that our energy systems, our people, and our communities are safe. At Washington Gas, we have a detailed and ongoing safety effort, including pipeline modernization. That, coupled with the work of our local, state, and federal government regulators, helps ensure that we're meeting our commitment to providing this safe and reliable service.
And I'd like to pick up on that point related to state regulators. As you're well aware, there are many policy discussions related to energy and utilities like Washington Gas. How are you working with governments and elected leaders like Senator Surovell to help the region meet its energy and climate needs?
Look, first of all, let me just say, and I want to give a recognition to the senator in Virginia, because he in the Virginia legislature is really leading the country in many ways. And I think that recognition needs to be heard. But our number one goal is that we're committed to ensuring that our customers' voices are heard and represented at all levels of government, city, state, local, federal. Our public affairs, our community engagement teams, they work tirelessly to respond to our customers' requests for safe, affordable, reliable, and secure energy. We also know that our customers really want us to help them pave the way for new and innovative ways they can help the region meet its climate goals. When our industry works collaboratively with policymakers, some really remarkable things can happen. As you mentioned, Senator Surovell was the chief patron and proponent of the Virginia Energy and Innovation Act. We cannot thank him enough for setting an example for the region and for the country. Again, like I said, Virginia is leading the way in helping us bring new solutions to the table, helping us figure out new ways to what otherwise be waste or released methane leaking to the air from landfills and wastewater treatment plants, other kind of sources, and thinking about how to use that and capture that in a way which brings benefits to the community, to the climate, and to our customers. Just specifically in Virginia, we've already gotten to task on this. We're already working on this, and pending regulatory approval, we'll soon own and operate a new interconnect, a new pipeline to accept and transport renewable natural gas from a biogas production facility located at the Prince William County landfill. This biogas facility is expected to provide an approximately 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from the landfill itself right now. Just to put that in context for the listeners, that's the equivalent of removing more than 17,000 gas-powered vehicles per year in Virginia. While we're excited about this opportunity, we know we have a lot more to do. In order for us to help the region meet its climate goals, we need to have a seat at the table. We need to make sure that we can bring our energy expertise and that we can bring the voices and what our customers are telling us, the 1.2 million customers are telling us every day to those conversations. Again, balanced, thoughtful engagement with policymakers, really, as we advocate for that, allows us to give them what the goal on climate, but also never sacrificing safety, affordability, reliability, and security.
And you mentioned customers. Obviously, a lot of people are well aware of the services they get, but they don't necessarily know what's going on underground or a lot of things behind the scenes. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about what Washington Gas has been doing over the years to improve its infrastructure throughout the region and what you're doing to upgrade and replace a lot of that infrastructure, which I know has been taking place for quite a while.
You're right. I mean, because we're an underground utility, people don't really notice Washington Gas Light and all the infrastructure we have. And it's absolutely critical for us to have a significant ongoing maintenance program, but also modernization program for these pipes. One of the big programs is our accelerated pipeline replacement programs. And again, it's not unique to us at Washington Gas. Utilities across the country have the same reality as infrastructure ages. It needs to be modernized. In fact, 41 states in the District of Columbia have what we call accelerated pipeline replacement programs. Each state has a little bit different way of doing this, a little different acronym. You may have heard it if you're in Virginia of our SAVE program. In DC, you'll hear it as our PIPES or Project PIPES program. And in Maryland, you'll hear about it as our STRIDE program. And over the past 10 years, over the past decade, these replacement programs, these modernization programs, Washington Gas Light has upgraded over 35 miles and thousands of services across our customer and our community footprint. Well, really, and the key is these activities, this modernization is focused on reducing risk and ensuring that we have a safe and reliable system. But the benefit, the added benefit, is we're replacing our most leak-prone infrastructure, our most leak-prone pipeline. And what this also does is it reduces leaks, methane leaks. So our pipes keep the gas in the pipe, serving you at your home and business. This means that we're reducing the sort of corollary greenhouse gas effect, and we're getting rid of thousands, hundreds of thousands of metric tons of greenhouse gas equivalent. In Virginia, also because of the Virginia Innovation Act, we have the ability to not only modernize our system, but to bring to bear some of the newest leak detection technologies, which helps us check our risk, check our leaks around our system. And we're looking to do that more aggressively over the future. Again, those kind of activities, modernization, maintenance, leak detection, allows us to provide safe and reliable service to our customers today and tomorrow.
And related to safety and climate issues, as you're well aware, there's been plenty of discussion about where things are headed. There's been a lot of discussion about more moves to electrification. There's been a big push from the administration currently related to that, as well as other policymakers. Some people say it doesn't have to be an either or type of proposition. How do you respond to those who say that it really needs to be primarily a push on the electrification front rather than some of the other utilities, including Washington Gas?
Great question. Look, at Washington Gas, we believe in what we would call as a balanced approach to helping this region meet its energy and climate goals. Policymakers, and we say this every day, must recognize that this is a multifaceted challenge and opportunity. Saying there's only one pathway, one single pathway forward, does not recognize just the reality of the challenges it takes to run an energy infrastructure, not just ours, but the power infrastructure and the other infrastructures that sort of operate. The energy evolution faces a real challenge. We have to balance this affordability, reliability, security, and safety, while we also drive towards a more sustainable future. You know, we've put forward plans specifically in Washington, D.C. We've put forward plans with our climate business plan. And we do believe and recognize there are moments and opportunities for customers to have beneficial electrification. But we also know that the regional electricity grid, PJM, which is the power grid that runs D.C., Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere, is powered mainly by natural gas, nuclear, and coal. In fact, renewables are still a small percentage of electric generation in PJM today, especially on the coldest night when there's no solar, when our customers are using natural gas to heat their homes. So we do push back on the assertion that mandated forced electrification as it stands today, and often people say, is the best or only pathway to our future. There's a lot of information out there in WGL, Washington Gas. We need to do a better job of making sure that customers and consumers across the region, policymakers, have the whole story before making decisions that could negatively impact their right to affordable, our customers' right to affordable, reliable, safe, and secure energy.
Do you foresee this as being a more gradual evolvement in terms of these various forms of energy?
The path forward is balanced. We need to take action today. We are taking action today. For us, really, it's built around modernizing our infrastructure, helping customers think about energy efficiency and deploy energy efficiency. The most efficient and effective way to sort of drive towards a brighter future is energy efficiency, right? Getting the same heat, the same warmth, the same lighting, the same cooking, with just less energy, right? And then making sure, as we think about it, being innovative in thinking about what is in fact the fuel moving down our pipes. Let me just take a second to talk about energy efficiency, because I think that's a big opportunity for us. We work with customers in Virginia and Maryland today around energy efficiency, and we're investing in that and promoting that. We would love to see DC authorize us to do the same. We'd love to have more robust conversations about how we can do more in Virginia and Maryland. Look, because energy efficiency is designed to reduce consumption of our product, right? Use less natural gas. And that's fine with us. It also, of course, reduces the customer's bill. If they use less therms of natural gas, their bill goes down. They have the added benefit that there's less emissions. And it really creates an environment where we can have a win-win. In terms of the total, and since 2021, over $28 million in rebates to customers, over 20,000 customers in Maryland and Virginia to upgrade their equipment and make and put energy improvements in their homes and offices. Look, this is a huge win, and we need to do more. I can go on about it. I know we only have so much time, but there really is so many ways that we have to work together. We could work together today. Beyond what we're doing and beyond sort of there's only one path forward. We need to do, again, balanced, all-in approach to helping our communities move forward with this energy transition.
All right. And then lastly, people may not know this, but you've been in business. Washington Gas has been in business for more than 175 years, as you alluded to earlier, one of the oldest companies in the area. What are some of the things, and you've touched on some of these, that you're most excited about the company planning for in the future over potentially another 175 years?
Yeah, and I do. We just celebrated 175 years last year. Really exciting time at Washington Gas Light. For those that don't know, at Washington Gas, our first customer was the U.S. Capitol. And our first service we provided was lighting. That's why people, when they see our name, Washington Gas Light, it's because we provided lighting to the Capitol. And we're really proud of what we've done since that first customer. We've grown both in services we provide and how people use our service, and also in our area, coming from the Capitol footprint to all of DC and now serving a lot of Northern Virginia, a lot of suburban Maryland around DC, and then, of course, all of DC. Look, we know that from this experience, these 175 years, we know and understand the energy needs and wants of our customers in this community. We have a deep commitment to ensuring our services are affordable and reliable and surprisingly easy for everyone we do business with. We're embedded in the fabric of this community. We employ more than 1,000 people, and thousands others partner with us, contract with us, help us serve our customers every single day to provide this absolutely critical and essential service. More than 1 million homes use natural gas. Beyond Washington Gas and Washington Gas Light, of course, the entire region, because of the electricity grid being so supported by natural gas, is ending up using natural gas as a secondary source in electricity. We love that we get to work in this community, and we're proud to call the DMV our home. Looking to the future, we believe more than ever that natural gas has an important and critical role to play in our overall economy. It's essential in providing heat and hot water, and in supplying electricity as we seek to have a balanced energy approach to the future. We're positioning ourselves inside of this dynamic region as a leader in the energy evolution, bringing our years and years of experience as energy experts in providing reliable, safe, affordable, and secure energy, while we're still working every single day to help our community meet their climate goals today and tomorrow. So that's what Washington Gas is doing, we've done, and what we continue to do, and what we look forward to doing, again, as you asked, for the next 175 years.
All right, we will leave it there. Thank you very much, Jim Steffes, Senior Vice President, Regulatory and Public Affairs with Washington Gas. I'm WTOP Capitol Hill correspondent Mitchell Miller, and this has been sponsored by Washington Gas and WTOP.com.